Back to the Dean Obeidallah show. Right now, very happy to have with us our friend Elie Mystal, the nation's justice correspondent and columnist, the Alfred Nobler Fellow at the Type Media Center, author of two books, which we had him on the show both times to discuss, Allow Me to Retort, and his most recent bestseller, Bad Law, 10 Popular Laws That Are Ruining America. Elie, good to see you, my friend.
Hi, Dean. How are you enjoying Trump's very bad, I'm losing all the time in court week?
Well, let's be honest. We've talked about this too many times in the past. They're generally temporary setbacks. The corrupt Supreme Court gets their hands on it, but it is good to see that, and it's a question of that doesn't have an impact. I don't know, but I want to get your reaction though to something. It's legal, but less legal on the nose, and that was the Epstein survivors and their press conference and the courage of all these survivors to come forward and demand simply the release of documents so that maybe the people who abused them can be held accountable. And I could never believe in my life there would be two sides to the story, but there is an opposing side, and that's Trump and the GOP.
Yeah, it was very powerful, obviously. And I think anytime you see people who have gone through that, who are willing to tell their stories and share their stories and put themselves in public, which not only kind of re-scars them, reminds people of the wounds, but also opens them up to some of the worst kind of criticism from the very worst people that this country can produce. It's always powerful and it's always moving and arresting. Um, what that does politically, who knows?
Right.
I feel like it is important for people to hold Trump accountable on this, for people to demand that he do the right thing and release these documents. But people demand that Trump does the right thing all the time, and it comes to nothing, especially women. I mean, this is a sexual predator that we're talking about. This is a person who has been accused by 29 women of untoward sexual advances. This is a man that's been accused of rape by E. Jean Carroll. This is a man who is caught on tape talking about how he likes to sexually assault women. When it comes
Mhm.
to women, Trump has repeatedly had the opportunity to come clean, to do the right thing, and he treats women like they're second-class citizens. I don't imagine this time will be any different. The fact that the right wing wants this is a different wrinkle
Right.
to the story. But fundamentally, this is a man who opposes women, who opposes women's rights, and opposes justice for women. I don't think that's changing anytime soon.
And I agree with you. But what I find interesting is you go through the litany of events, Donald Trump, that he's been able to overcome. It's not been an issue for him. He knows that too. So whatever's in this file is potentially worse than everything you've listed to me because he is desperate to keep this from us. Yesterday, the White House put out a statement that viewed as a, quote, very hostile act to the administration if you support the discharge petition of Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna. House leadership is whipping votes against it because Trump wants them to whip votes against it. So whatever is in there, for what in Trump's mind, he could be wrong about it, but he's concerned it is worse than everything you've just listed. That's what I believe.
Oh yeah, I think Vladimir Putin believes the same thing. Because I bet he's seen them. I bet he knows what's in the files. No, Trump is running scared from this, which increases, I think, the public interest in what's in there. I personally, I don't think it's just things that are damaging to Trump. I think it's things that are damaging to everybody in his orbit. You know, Trump is here because he is backed by some incredibly rich and
Right.
powerful people, and I think there's probably stuff about them on there too. So like, it's not just that, possibility A, there's something completely damaging to him about it. But possibility B is that there's something completely damaging to the people who made him about it, to his funders, to his sugar daddies about it. And either possibility explains what we're seeing in terms of his reluctance. Because quite frankly, Dean, I might be cynical. If it was just about him, I think he'd release it and just delete doctor, fake, lie, all of the damaging information about himself out of it. If it was just about him, I think he'd just lie his way out of it, like, because that's what he's done throughout his entire life and certainly throughout his entire political career. So I kind of think that it's not just about him. It's also about other kind of powerful people that Trump wants to protect because those powerful people protect him.
That's interesting insight into it, and it resonates to me. And in time, we'll know. We may or may never get the full, complete files. I just think it's remarkable to watch this play out right in front of us. I mean, in my gut, I don't know in your gut, do you have any sense what it could be about Trump? To me, my gut tells me that what we're going to find out, that's impossible for Trump to deny that he didn't know about what Epstein and Maxwell were up to. I mean, they were
It's
close friends in the heart of the entire sex trafficking thing. And he did nothing. He didn't alert the authorities, didn't call the police. And of course, he would never do that on his other rich white friend. That's never going to happen in the world. I think potentially that, I mean, listeners to my show think he actually raped children. And I'm like, that could be true. I just have not, that's not, common sense doesn't tell me that's happened.
No, I agree with your listeners on that one. I just like it's obvious to me. It's obvious that he knew what was going on.
Right.
They were butts. There's no question that he knew what was going on. But he could spin. He knew what was going on. It's the other thing that you can't spin, right? And I agree with your listeners. If there is something he's scared about, it's the other thing. Which I totally believe he did because again, he's a sexual predator. The other interesting thing here, though, is that you really see how complicit and completely captured the Republican Party is by this man because his own voters want him to release it, which means the other Republican voters want them to release it, and yet Republican elected officials are still kind of caping for this man and doing his dirty work and protecting him. And it just, I'm going to show my age here, but I'm old enough to remember when the entire Democratic Party turned on Bill Clinton over the Monica Lewinsky scandal. We didn't think that he should be impeached over it, but there weren't people defending his ass, right? There weren't people hiding, put it like this. If Tip O'Neill had the blue dress in his closet, that thing would have been coming out, in public, would have been released to the public immediately. There were no Democrat elected officials. Al Gore, his vice president, was like, that he shouldn't have done that. That was terrible, right? Like
Right.
Al Gore ran away from Bill Clinton on that thing. It's one of the reasons Al Gore didn't win the election, I think. So it just shows that like Democrats, when we have this level of potential corruption, especially about sexual stuff, even if we still vote for the guy, we don't support the guy, and we don't cover up for the guy. John Edwards was out of that presidential race in two shakes of a lamb's tail when his scandal dropped, right? Republicans, by the other hand, they always fall in line. They always fall in line behind their dear leader. I think it's honestly a difference in how they're psychologically wired. They're submissive. Republicans are submissive to big, strong, powerful men.
I agree. I think there's an authoritarian streak that's within them and their DNA. Some of them fear it, some of it like it. In any event, I'm chatting with our friend Elie Mystal. So, Elie, I wanted to shift gears for a second. Over the weekend on Labor Day, there was viral memes and videos declaring Trump had died, right? And, there's some just simple amount of joy people can take from that. That's fine. I don't wish him death. I wish him a prison cell. I mean, I don't, he's going to die at some point. I think he should die in jail, but that's a different point. My concern is that clearly Trump has health issues. We're not making that up. We all see his cognitive decline. He's 79. He'll be 80 in 6 months. I mean, there's no doubt. But I fear for some Democrats, it's the easy way not to do the work and just go, he's going to be dead by next year anyway. So do we have to really work? And that's my biggest concern with some of the leaders and a little bit in the rank and file who feel overwhelmed that we can't really win the battles. So let's just hope the devil takes him back.
I see that, Dean. I look, I spent a lot of time. I'm not a praying man, but I pray for the last cheeseburger, right? The big cheeseburger in the sky, to come and rid us of this problem. My issue with the Trump death stories is really focused on the media, right? Joe Biden takes a nap at 4 o'clock, and it's a 5-day story about Sleepy Joe. It's all the questions that he gets are about his health. Trump disappears from public view, has nothing on his public schedule for 3 days. and he gets one question about it, and it's a plant, and it's a joke from Steve Doocy. Oh, it was Mr. President. When did you find out you were dead? That's the only thing the White House press corps did. And
Mhm.
so it just really shows the asymmetrical playing field in the press between Republicans and Democrats. Democrats have to fight and respond. People like Biden had to fight and respond to every inane piece of crap ginned up by the right wing. Trump goes away for 3 days. Nobody asks him a goddamn question. It's not a 3 day news cycle. It's not leading the New York Times. There isn't an expose from Dr. Oz in the Philadelphia Free Press about Trump's health. There's nothing from like that from our side when Trump is clearly suffering serious health problems. Why? Why is that? It's part of the asymmetry. Now, one of the
Can I
reasons.
just say one quick thing though, Elliot, to that? Well, because the question was Peter Doocy, Steve Doocy's son, right? Isn't it, or is it Steve Doocy, Peter Doocy's the father? One of the Doocy's. The younger one asked the question, and you could see JD Vance and the others smirking because they're joking. And Trump's like, I didn't hear that. I'm like, what do you mean you didn't hear that? That's like something a dead man would say. Like, how did you not? It was everywhere this weekend. And he literally said, I don't know what you're talking about. And he didn't go like laugh it off like a normal human being. He goes, of course he heard it. I don't think he even remembers over days. I think his memory loss is now in the point of shorter and shorter. I have it with my mom when she had dementia. And I think there's a story there, but the media just, well, whatever.
Or he literally didn't hear it because he's so insulated, because he only has yes men around him, because nobody is willing to tell the emperor that he has no clothes on. Like, his circle is so tight and they're so sycophantic. It's possible that he did not hear the mean jokes people were making about him because his people were afraid to tell him about it. Like that, you got to think also, like, the Japanese shogun in 1540 is not hearing about the jokes the people are making about him because his people are too terrified to tell him about it. That's where Trump is right now as well. But again, it's the media's job to tell him about it, and it's the media's job to get a response from him, and they completely failed the job. Now, one of the reasons for that is that our side is smarter. And when I say that, people always think that I'm casting an ad hominem, and I am, but there's there's proof of that.
Right.
We knew he wasn't dead. We knew he wasn't
I
dead.
didn't think he was really dead. I didn't.
Right? Nobody actually thought he was dead. Nobody actually thought Joe Biden was dead. Our side, our people, our media is going to focus on things that are real instead of things that are fake, that gin up public attention. And that is part of the asymmetry as well. If you're a liberal journalist, if you're a good journalist, you're going to ask a question that is relevant. You're not going to waste your time on something where you already know the answer to. It's only the right wingers and the bad journalists that do that. But when the situation is reversed, somehow good journalists believe that it becomes a legitimate question to ask about whether or not Joe Biden is dead because he's been hiding in a basement for 6 hours. Like that becomes somehow in Beltway mind a legitimate question, where it's not a legitimate question to ask Trump where he's been for 3 days and whether or not he's dying.
It's interesting. And to me, like we want to know facts. I have a friend who's a cardiologist, and I said to him recently, well, when you look at Trump, what do you see? And he actually said, and people might not like this, he said, I just see a man who's naturally aging, who he has really good genes. And he said if he ate well and took care of himself, he would live to 100, this guy, because that's what's going on here. Because everything else he's doing is against what we would advise as doctors. His diet, no exercise, all that stuff. And the swelling of the ankles, it could either be a heart condition or it can be natural aging. When you're overweight like that and you're not doing physical activity, it starts building up. Because I was hoping the doctor would go like, this guy's got like 2 weeks. I've seen this. No, he didn't say that. He goes, look, it's natural aging. And he goes, if he was anyone else with bad genes, he would be dead. And if he took care of himself, he could live to 100. And he wasn't kidding. But it's good. It's somewhere in between. What's going to really happen?
Did you see, Dean, that clip that they were showing of Putin and Xi? They caught him on a hot mic, literally talking about how they plan to live to 150 with organ transplants. Like we're living in a dystopia where like the most powerful people are like, I'm literally trying to live forever out here. It was the
You get
whole.
transplant. What keeps you alive to 150? It's the pancreas. It's a heart. I mean, what do you got to get? I mean, a
Well,
brain. I mean, what?
they're just gonna harvest them apparently, right? They're just gonna harvest the organs from the younger generation and stick them in their bodies and live to 150. I mean, like that's
And
literally what they were talking about.
and,
And like it's
Ellie,
just
but the quick thing, like to go back through time, wasn't like Ponce de Leon and the others going for the fountain of youth. I mean, this is all through time. Everyone with power wants to live forever, and they go
once.
out into the world looking for it. They've made sci-fi movies about it, and everything.
And what it shows is that to me, the living forever in the kind of dystopian fiction, the living forever stuff is what happens when you have nothing left to achieve in this mortal plane, right? Like when the only thing you're afraid of, you're not afraid of being overthrown, you're not afraid of losing power, where death is the only bad thing left that can happen to you. And it's a function of dystopian authoritarian governments. And that's where China is, that's where Russia is, and that's where America is trying to be in this dystopian world where the dear leader is the leader for as long as he can hang on, for as long as he can stave off the cheeseburgers. He's the leader forever, which is not how our system was supposed to work, which is
No.
what we literally revolted against. But there are too many monarchical and authoritarian curious Americans apparently that we have chosen this dystopian path for ourselves.
There's a chance that some of the younger people Trump has picked around him who aren't competent, it's for their organs. That's why he's bringing them in. Like one day, Carolyn Levitt's not in for a few days, and she comes in. She goes, "I don't know. I fell asleep, and I have this scar on my kidneys area." Like
Dude, if I was
Trump's getting a
Eric Trump,
kidney.
I'd sleep with one eye open. That's all I'm saying, right?
Like,
Like,
like Stephen Miller would give a kidney like that. I mean, there's no doubt. Like Miller would take a kidney. He would stab you and take your kidney for Donald Trump.
as
Your
long as you're
heart,
white.
your liver, your pancreas. That's
Yeah, as long
exactly.
as you're white. He doesn't want no Latino kidneys in there. Only good American-born white kidneys for Stephen Miller.
I'm chatting with our friend Elie Mystal. All right, Ellie, we'll go on to topic two. Although I had a bunch of topics, we're going to get to one more, I think, before we run out of time here. But the Harvard ruling. You went to Harvard undergrad, Harvard Law School. Harvard is the only university to stand up and actually file a lawsuit. And they got a good decision by Judge Burroughs yesterday saying this isn't about anti-Semitism, which there could be a basis under federal law to prevent it. This is about freedom of expression. And they actually quoted what Trump was saying, his writing and what he was saying, and go like, he wasn't talking about anti-Semitism. He was talking about wokeness, and I don't like the professors they hired. They're liberals, Bill de Blasio, and that kind of stuff. So what do you think of this decision?
You see how it's done, Columbia? You see how it's done, Columbia? Yes. I agree with the decision. It's the decision that I expected. Trump's actions were patently unconstitutional, patently illegal, and she will be overturned by the Supreme Court. I mean,
Yeah.
reading through it, you're looking through it to be like, oh, Gorsuch is going to disagree with that. Oh, Barrett's going to disagree with that. Like you can see where they're going to take this down, and everybody knows it, right? Like one of the reasons why it's news but not real news, and this is what we were both alluding to at the top of the segment. We don't know how long this is going to last because we know that the Supreme Court is lying in the tall grass in wait to stab the law in the back to clear the path for Donald Trump. 2 weeks ago, the Supreme Court made a completely insane ruling. Like one of those rulings were like, I'm an expert on this stuff. Like I read a lot of this stuff, and you read the ruling and you're just like, what just happened there? What do they do? Like Amy Coney Barrett's argument for where claims should be filed, how to protest, how to legally fight for your rights when Trump freezes your funding is so gobbledygook. It's so inane that even as an expert, I can't tell you exactly what she meant, right? Like I can't. She did not write with the requisite clarity to understand exactly how she thinks this is going to play out. My best guess, though, is that when the Harvard case gets up to the Supreme Court, Amy Coney Barrett and the other Republicans are going to say that actually Harvard shouldn't have filed the claim in federal court. They should have filed the claim in a different court called the Federal Claims Court, which I don't want to bore people with. It is very boring. But basically say that Harvard filed their lawsuit in front of the wrong judge. And they have to start all the way over from the start to go back to a different judge, get essentially the same ruling, and then they can take that ruling to the judge they just went to, get another good ruling, and then maybe the Supreme Court will actually rule on the merits and probably still rule for Trump, right? But like just that convolutedness of the legal process is what I think Amy Coney Barrett said has
Right.
to happen a couple of weeks ago, and is probably the easiest way for the Supreme Court to rubber stamp Trump's funding freeze kind of quickly.
And to me, it reminded me a little reading that part of the decision where the judge is saying, here's what Trump said, and here's what their justifications. They're different. It reminded me in the first time on the Muslim ban.
Oh, yeah.
And Justice Roberts, like, well, it doesn't matter what he says, that kind of stuff. Like a president has broad authority to do that. And I'm like, they're going to do the same thing here. And then it was only 5-4 the court. Now it's 6-3.
John Roberts and the Republicans in the court have decided that what Trump says doesn't matter.
I know.
Somehow. Somehow it doesn't matter. Like he can say, I'm doing an illegal thing. And Roberts is like, yeah, ignored that. What he meant to say was that everything is fine and totally cool. Like that's how Roberts thinks that it goes. So I agree. I think all of the evidence that Judge Burroughs put forward about Trump's own words and his own reasons for imposing this ban, the Supreme Court will ignore it. They will say that it doesn't matter when they get to the merits, which is probably not going to be for another couple of years.
Yeah, they'll look at the document, the order itself, and say, well, that we don't care what he says. And I'm chatting with our friend Elie Mystal. Last two things here, Elie. One is, you have Governor Pritzker and Governor Newsom both saying Trump wants to end elections. And I think everybody following the world knows this. Everyone following Donald Trump knows that. But what they're not giving is any kind of remedy or any kind of prescription for how do we save our elections. And is there from a legal point of view, is it just the AGs being ready? Is it just Mark Elias saving all of us? I mean, what do you think they could be adding to give a call to action for people to do more than just like, he wants to end it? Yeah, we know that. We're all worried. How's he going to do that? The military scooping up voting machines before anyone can count the ballots on election night in the blue cities? I mean, yeah, what are we going to do? That kind of stuff. I'm worried. From a legal point of view, anything hit you about what can be done? Anything else?
Yeah, so I saw this question on your sheet, and I thought about it for a bit, and I don't come up with anything.
Oh boy,
it really like there. I mean, and it's that's hard for me to say because I usually like to be like, okay, we got to do this and we got to do that. There ain't a lot we can do. You already pointed out that being legally ready to challenge or counter challenge what the Republicans will put forth to try to steal the election, that's important. I think we weren't legally ready in 2000 in Bush v. Gore. That's a big reason why we lost. I think we were legally ready in 2020 with Trump v. Biden. That's a big reason why we won. So I think being legally ready is important. Having the lawyers and the arguments and the ability to file off reply briefs in a night because you've already done all the research because you know what they're about to say. All of that is important. They're doing that. I think being, I don't want to say militarily ready, but having an ability to control the actual physicality of the elections, right? The actual polling places, the actual ballots, maintaining physical control over that, over federal troops. The Constitution and our laws give the states broad, almost impenetrable authority to run their own elections without federal interference. And so Pritzker, Newsom, Hochul, whoever, they should have authority to prevent the National Guard from doing anything to tamper with their physical stuff, so long as their people are physically there, right? If you've just got like a 75-year-old poll worker and some masked ICE agent comes in and says, "Give me the ballots," she's gonna hand them over, right? You have to have some other person, most likely with a gun, standing right behind a 75-year-old woman saying, "I need to see your warrant, sir." Like, where's your, like, you have to be ready for that as well. Assuming they are ready on both of those two things. And I think Newsom and Pritzker at least are ready on both of those things. There ain't a lot else you can do other than to play our game. And that's, but the other thing, Dean, is that when they're talking about stealing elections, they're not just talking about stealing elections in their state. I mean, yes, they are, but It's the broader national election,
Right.
national midterm that's being stolen right from under our noses, and there ain't squat Pritzker or Newsom can do about Greg Abbott in Texas. There ain't squat they can do about Missouri. There ain't squat they can do about Florida. And if if Texas re-gerrymanders itself so that only Republicans can win in Congress, which they have, it's kind of ball game, right? If Florida does the same, it's kind of ball game. Newsom has a really good,
Right.
um,
He's got a plan there. That should happen. That's 5 seats probably.
right. Newsom's going to reflip, but like if Newsom reflips, then Florida reflips, then Ohio reflips, then Missouri reflips. I wrote a whole article about what it would take for New York to
I know.
re-gerrymander itself, and it's super hard. Can't be done before 2026, quite frankly, because Democrats were trying to, be fair and nice in New York, and look where that got us. New York cannot re-gerrymander itself as aggressively as Texas has re-gerrymandered itself. And when you look at the other blue states, Massachusetts, the states that might be willing to play this game as well, we just don't have the numbers compared to a Texas or a Florida or an Ohio. Big Gretch isn't gonna re-gerrymander Michigan, which is a purple state, as aggressively as Texas. She can.
Yeah.
Michigan doesn't play that way. Just where people live in Michigan does not lend itself to that kind of re-gerrymandering the way that it does in Texas. Our biggest hope to stop Texas at this point really might be Latino voters. And given what they did last time, I really hate saying that, but those re-gerrymandered districts in Texas only work for Republicans if Latinos continue their slide into Trump land. If there is a stark reversal of that slide, if Latinos come out in numbers and vote against Republicans, those re-gerrymandered districts, those 5 seats they're trying to flip, they don't flip. But that's kind of where it's at in Texas.
And I had on the Democratic state chair from Texas recently, and he made an interesting point because look, Trump was looking up. Trump won Texas in 2024 by 14 points. He only won by 5 points in 2020, and he won by 9 points in 2016. And the Democratic state chair said, if you do the numbers for 2024, yes, they pick up the 5 seats. If you do the turnout model in 2018, Democrats win, I think, 2 or 3 of those seats. Like it's really, they're way out there. But all right, before I let you go, Elie, what do you want them to follow? I know you're on Blue Skies or The Nation you write for. Anything specific you want them to follow of your work?
I definitely want you to read The Nation. I have a newsletter now in The Nation that I do every week. So subscribe to that, please. You can find that at thenation.com under our newsletters tab. And yeah, I'm on Blue Sky. I'm not really doing the apartheid social media anymore. I kind of will throw an article up there just for the algorithm.
That's what I do.
But I'm not really on Apartheid Clyde's platform anymore. So yeah. And it's look, I try to do self-care this summer. I took my kids to Disney World. That's how like
Wow,
out
that's
of
nice.
the out of loop. I went on some Star Wars rides, man. I really try to not have Trump determine my happiness this summer.